Okay, Crystal Griffith here. Welcome back for another daily digest of emotions, wisdom, and your body. So I have a new webcam. Can you guys tell? I'm not sure I like it. What do you think? All right, drop your comments in. Let me know. So today we're going to spend 15 to 20 minutes talking and delving into our emotions, how they affect our body, soul, and spirit. Here's your disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I do not play one on any social media platform. I do have my master's in adult education, as well as several inner healing accreditations and certifications and some trauma background. So we are going to talk today about tired, because we want you to be edified. We want you to be educated and encouraged that you do not have to stay tired, even though you might feel like it all the time. Now, when we talk about tired, we're really talking about tired in body, in soul, and in spirit. So what does that really look like? So tired means in need of sleep or rest. You're weary, you're drained of strength and energy. And really there is a difference between tired and exhausted. And that depends on the degree of your weariness or your tiredness. The adjective tired really implies that a person is in need of rest. You're yawning, probably means you need more oxygen to your brain. Get up, get moving. That always helps. Get water. That always helps as well. Exhausted is the extreme version of tired, where there just doesn't seem to be any recovery from the tiredness, even when you rest at night for sleep. Exhausted also implies that a person is extremely weary. And maybe there's just a crisis or a stress level that's going on and on and on. And your body just really is struggling to get any rejuvenation back into it. So the difference between tired and exhausted lies on the edge of that, or the degree of that tiredness. Now, there's a third word I want to kind of interject here, and that's fatigue. Fatigue is a lingering tiredness that is just constant and it's very limiting. And that really is what you're talking about from an emotional standpoint of tiredness. With fatigue, you have unexplained, persistent, and relapsing exhaustion. And it's similar to how you feel when you have the flu or you've missed a lot of sleep. Maybe you've been up several nights in a row. So is it negative or positive? It can be both. Identifying that you are tired can teach you how to take time to rest. But in essence, that tiredness leading to not just that exhaustion and that fatigue, but really can begin to affect your brain in different ways that is not good. So what are we talking about for your brain? Your brain is technically an organ. It's not a muscle, and it does have a little bit of muscle tissue. But for the most part, it's mostly fat, actually. In the brain, there's electrical cells that are called neurons. They transmit messages via different chemicals that are corresponding and releasing within your brain. And although the brain isn't a muscle, its cells do use energy to function. And the brain requires fuel and energy. And this is according to Gary Feigl, who's an MD and who's a geriatric psychiatrist in Atlanta, who specializes in neurology and psychiatry. So the brain uses glucose. This is really super important to catch. So the brain uses glucose as the primary source of energy. Now, when glucose enters the brain cells, it gets turned into ATP, which is a complex organic chemical for storing and transferring energy in cells by the mitochondria. The idea is when your brain is working hard, it uses up all that glucose, right? And it feels you leaving depleted, right? So it's used up all its energy, it's used up all its glucose, and now you're depleted of that energy. So the lowered glucose levels then raise the ATP, right? And when it blocks, which then blocks dopamine, that chemical, that dopamine is, remember, what makes you feel good. It keeps you motivated, right? It keeps you moving forward. So just think of it this way. So your brain is working hard, and then it uses up all the glucose, right? So now you're depleted in that glucose area. And then because you have lower glucose levels, that raises the ATP to try and create more energy within you. And to do that, it blocks the dopamine. So if your body is constantly working to raise your ATP levels and it's blocking the dopamine all the time, you're going to have to replenish the dopamine as well. So when you're tired, your brain then decreases blood flow and electrical activity. Hence why we call that brain fog oftentimes, which is actually not brain fog, it's brain fatigue, actually. And that usually happens when your brain is dealing with an ongoing supply of new information. Maybe you've got a new diagnosis, maybe you're learning more information, maybe you're going through a conference or a certification or a degree, and you're learning new information that you've never encountered before. At times, it almost feels like a whole new language. So if I wanted to be a lawyer tomorrow, boy, there's a whole book of lawyer terms that I would have to learn to even be able to talk the same lingo, right? Same concept. And so what we're doing is we're putting in all this extra energy into every single decision wrapped around what's going on within your life. And especially if you're going through a crisis. So for example, a couple of the new medical things that we've endured in our family over the last year, that brought a whole new set of terminology, whole new set of information that I didn't even know existed out there. And then I had to learn that so I could have a more intelligent conversation with the doctors and ask better questions of how to help the people who are going through this crisis, right? Same idea there. Now, when we put that much extra energy into those decisions, it basically overuses your executive functioning, prefrontal cortex, which can cause mental fatigue. There's your brain fatigue, right? So what is all this going to lead us to? And I'm going a little more in depth than I normally do to the brain, because I really want you to understand the difference between you feeling tired. You've just been on the go all day, and now you're like, I just need to be at home and sit down for a minute, right? Versus that fatigue that's ongoing from all that new information. And the exhaustion kind of lies in the middle of that. And the exhaustion becomes what drives the mental fatigue, because you can never recover. It's like you can't get the ATP to release the dopamine enough for you to be able to recover. Now, a feeling of lessened capacity for work or reduced efficiency for accomplishment, it usually comes along with that weariness, that fatigue. You just can't get enough done, right? Even if it's in your house, cooking dinner or grabbing the laundry or even running your errands, getting groceries. There are days that maybe you come home from work and you're like, yeah, soup sounds fine because I don't have enough energy to go in that grocery store and find something for dinner, right? Same idea. Tiredness is not a singular symptom that defines really any one particular disease, but rather tiredness can be a symptom of many diseases and conditions. It can also be an actual interaction from a medication. A medication can actually make you more tired. And so then you're never getting that ATP up again as well. So the lack of energy associated with tiredness can sometimes cause difficulty with normal daily activities. And that leads to problems with attentiveness and concentration, which can also affect your driving. And a lot of people don't think through that. If you're tired, driving is the last thing that you want to do. And that's not just from the standpoint of you might fall asleep at the wheel, but it's you're not quick enough on the draw to stop properly, to stop short if you need to, or to be aware of all the cars and how they're interacting around you in that moment. Fatigue can also be caused by a number of factors working in combination, such as medical conditions, unhealthy lifestyles, and workplace problems and stress. If you are constantly living in stress in your workplace, I really would encourage you to examine how you can change that. And it may come to a place where you might have to leave that job and find a different one, because that stress level just stays so high within you that you can never again recover, and there's no rejuvenation from it. Fatigue is also a known risk factor in workplace accidents. And people don't think about workplace accidents. They just think about motor vehicle accidents, but there can be workplace accidents as well, especially if you're on a factory line or if you're in an accounting situation where adding a decimal point or adding an extra number or adding even an extra zero can throw off major financial issues and create major crises there. Studies suggest that psychological factors are present in at least 50% of fatigue cases. So what are those psychological affects? Those are really that depression, anxiety, stress, and grief. So if you have any one of those four, you typically are going to have that tiredness moving into exhaustion and fatigue piece. Now, fatigue can also cause another range of physical, mental, and emotional symptoms. They include chronic tiredness and sleepiness, headaches, dizziness, sore and aching muscles. A lot of times people don't realize they hold that fatigue and that stress in their neck and their shoulders, right? Slowed reflexes and responses. That's what I was just talking to you about with the driving. And then impaired decision making and judgment. Really just having a clear mind to make a good decision could be impaired. Moodiness, such as irritability, impaired hand-to-eye coordination, appetite reduction, reduced immune system functions, vision, short-term memory problems, poor concentration, hallucinations, and reduced ability to even pay attention to the situation at hand. All of these play into fatigue and tiredness, even low motivation. You're just not had the motivation to go out and do anything. You're just tired, right? So what is the difference then between this brain fog that I mentioned earlier and then the brain fatigue? Because what we're talking about is Ben fatigue, but we do have a brain fog piece. So brain fog is a little different. It's really that feeling of cloudiness over the brain that makes one slow down the thinking processes, almost like slow-mo. And so even if somebody asks you a question, you're just kind of looking like, okay, I'm pretty sure you asked me something. I think I got about 3 ideas of what you asked me, but why don't you just ask it to me in a different way? Now you've engaged your brain differently than the first time when they asked it, and you're going to hear the question better. So never hesitate to say, hey, I didn't catch all that. Could you ask it to me in a different way? And now you're actively listening as well. Now, brain fog can be due to food allergies. A lot of people don't realize that. It can also be due to mold exposure. That's like chemical induced brain fog right there. And if you have a brain injury, brain fog is aplenty. So sometimes when I'm doing these talks, you can see I'm hesitating on some of the words. That's part of that brain fog. It's trying to enter into the fog so it can go to the right direction. So I often explain it like this. I know you can get from A to B to C, right? I have to get to C. My brain no longer goes A to B to C. It goes A to D to Q to F to M, and then it gets to C. And that's a slow-mo kind of effect as well, because now I have to go to 14 other points to get to C. I get there, but I have to get to 14 other points before I can get there. So there's a delayed effect. And we call that brain fog versus brain fatigue on that one. So you might see that difference. Now, when you have brain fatigue, the speed at which you can do simple activities slows down. So then that A to B to C, instead of it going bum, 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 and if you can get A to B to C, right, it goes bum, bum, bum. Now the whole thing just slows down. So you can still go A, B, C, but just getting from A to B is slower. B to C is slower. You'll still get there, but it's much slower in that reduction of rate. So an easier way to explain that is your computer, and now you have saved 75 things on your desktop, and then you're complaining about how slow your computer is. Basically, you put boxes in your way to get from the front door to the kitchen. So get all the boxes out of the way, or everything off your desktop actually, and put it in the documents folder. And then you have a clear desktop, and your computer will actually run a lot faster. People don't know that little trick. So leave everything in documents. Don't save things on your desktop. If you need to, save it as a shortcut instead. That will free up your computer to run a whole lot faster. You'll be shocked. Now, how do we help that with your brain though? So how do we make it go faster from A to B to C? Or like in my case, I have to go to all those extra points to get to C because that connection A to B doesn't work anymore, right? So how do we make all of those run faster, whether it's brain fatigue or brain fog? So let's talk about that. So to reduce your fatigue in general, you first need to understand what the underlying reasons are for your fatigue. Now, same thing for brain fog. For me, I know why I have my brain fog, but there are other days that I also have brain fatigue on top of the brain fog, right? So the prefrontal cortex, remember, front door, where your higher order thinking is done, your executive processing, takes a lot of energy. We talked about that just a few minutes ago. So your brain cannot perform complex tasks all day. If you are a number cruncher, that may be what your brain is trained for, and you can do it all day long. For me, you got a good hour and then we're done. Now, creatively, I can do things all day long. I could train for 8 hours a day. I could do inner healing sessions. Typically, my max is about 4 of those a day because I'm processing a lot emotionally with the client as well. And I'm also hearing this direction and then this direction and making those compute. So for me, about 4 of those a day is about my max. So you're going to learn what your max is. Now, after you go past that point, or let's say I have a really intensive situation with a client, then I may actually have brain fatigue at that point because I've been doing a really complex piece for maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. And so same concept if you're working that in your job, and even though it comes easy to you, maybe it's an extended period of time that your brain's not used to doing that. Think of it in terms of if you're not used to speaking in public and then you start teaching again, you start to lose your voice pretty early on because you haven't been using it. You haven't been practicing carrying that voice modulation for a longer period of time. So even if you're drinking water or drinking tea, you're still overusing your voice. And that's what we're talking about here. So it's like you're overusing your brain for complex tasks and it makes it tired. That's really what it does. Now, consider completing your most challenging activities in the morning, right after you wake up, because then your brain is up and moving and going. And to be honest, it doesn't have all the toxins it has to encounter throughout the day. Whatever those toxin pollutants are, they come during the day. So we're not just talking about like mold pollutants, we're talking about just in the air pollutants, as well as we have a particular Walmart that's right by, we live in the Rockies and weed is now legalized. So when you go to this particular Walmart and you drive by this place, if they're harvesting and doing a certain processing to the weed there, we all get a contact high. and we don't go to that Walmart when we start smelling it in the air with our windows closed and rolled up because we're like, nope, we will drive all the way out of the way to go to the other Walmart so we do not have to entertain that smell because we know it's getting into us, right? And that's the pollutants that we're talking about there. And now, so what's some other things that we can do to help ourselves? So not only just doing your most challenging activities in the morning, but also having a regular stress management routine. Self-care is key here, folks. It really is. You've got to put your oxygen mask on first, and you got to give your brain a rest. So for some people, that's reading a fictional book, not even a nonfiction. So when I go on vacations, I always pack a fictional book and a nonfiction book, some kind of self-help book that I'm working on, right? And so funny story, I will usually pick up the nonfiction. I'll get about a chapter into it. I'm like, I can't do this. And I'll go get the fiction book and just be caught up in the story so I can just give my brain a break. And then I can go back to the other book and I can read it like that. So those are just some ideas. Maybe just listening to some instrumental music, maybe going for a hike. I've got some good friends. Best thing in the world for them is to go on a hike, get outside, enjoy some fresh air, and they love to do that. So everybody's a little different, but I really want to encourage you, come up with at least 3 things that would give your brain a mental break. And it doesn't have to constantly be on high alert or working at full speed, right? It can just be out enjoying your moment of where you are and how you're getting there. And sometimes if you're by a beach, which I'm so jealous of, if you're by a beach, just putting your feet in the sand actually can serve you in a grounding function, which is a whole nother topic we can talk about, which is a phenomenal piece. People who live in places not like the beach can just get in the dirt and put their hands in the dirt or their feet in the dirt, and it actually grounds your body. It actually releases some free radicals of electrons moving around in your body. Can be huge for your brain detoxing, for your brain just releasing out all of those things that it's been carting around. So those are some ideas. Now, a couple other ones. Obviously, keeping a healthy diet. The more caffeine, the more junk food that you're eating, it's not helping your body. Let's just be real, right? We all know that. And there are going to be times that you're going to listen to it, and there are going to be times that you don't listen to it, right? Last night, we didn't listen to it very well. We're watching a movie. We found our pretzel sticks and we found a little chocolate. Boy, they were good. Now, the other thing is getting enough sleep. If you're not sleeping well, we really got to have a talk. Let's see why you're not sleeping well. Is it inflammation? Is it your brain not shutting off? Is it just you're hurting so badly? Really, what is keeping you up at night? Let's have that conversation. PM me. Let's talk. Now, what's the number 1 fuel for your brain? I've already given you that answer actually in our talk earlier. Do you remember? What does your brain run on? Starts with a G. I hope you said glucose. because that's what it runs on. You can actually buy glucose, and it can be unflavored. You can drop it in your water, you can drop it in your food, you can drop it in a variety of things. I'm telling you, you will see results super fast. And if you need a referral, let me know. I've got some good product. Now, dehydration is your brain's number one enemy. Did you know that? Dehydration. If you're not getting enough water, and I said that like that on purpose because my friend always laughs at me the way I say water. This is New York phonics. What can I do? But your dehydration, super important. And tea and Coke and coffee, they're not really hydrating you well. So I really want to encourage you to figure out ways to get more water in, okay? Now, what else does your brain need? Rewards. You need to be rewarded for doing a job well done. And so does your brain. So that could be your self-care. It could be a good massage. It could be a good walk. It could be just writing a creative story or watching a TV show, which is fine. Binge watching, not a reward. That's escape. So reward well in your body so it can rest well. And then it can get rid of your fatigue, right? Now, your body is what we've been talking about so far with this tiredness, fatigue, and exhaustion. Your soul, on the other hand, is not your body. Your soul can be also tired. So we talked about body, soul, and spirit. Spirit being where Christ lives, your soul being more like your flesh, and then you have your body of that flesh, right? So your soul, when it's tired, really, there's a lack of motivation. It's a drive issue. And you're really so tired, you don't even want to get out of bed because just getting the day started takes so much energy. So think of soul as kind of that energy piece, just overall gumption of moving towards a goal, right? Spirit is really tired in relating to relationship with the Lord, possibly, or tired in the season that you've been in. And that can cause fatigue as well, especially if you've been walking through the desert season for a long time, or you've been fighting a certain situation, maybe your finances, or maybe in a relationship fighting for or trying to figure it out, whether that be with the Lord or with somebody else. So soul and spirit can interact and create kind of a whirlwind together, like a vortex, but they really are separate. So is your body. So it's body, soul, and spirit. It's a trifecta there. So here are 9 reasons that your soul, remember that's that energy, that gumption, that motivation, is exhausted. Perhaps you're not being honest with yourself. There's no self-love, no self-care. You have a hard time saying no. Come on, you can practice with me. No, thank you. Thanks for thinking of me, but I'm going to pass. You don't have to explain why. You can just say, no, thank you. The constant feeling of missing something. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. You're not missing out. You were in the place that God knew you were going to be in this moment. And guess what? He can still talk to you there. Isn't that cool? So you're never missing out. Don't doing things for just the sake of doing it. Well, I should. I have to. I need to. Why? Who's telling you to do those things? Because the only person you should be listening to, and he's got the best plan for you. So listen to him so he can get you on the straight and narrow, right? Letting the ghosts of the past haunt you. This is a good one for brain fatigue and sleep insomnia. So really having anxiety around potentially sins or mistakes that have happened in the past, and you haven't dealt with them. So deal with them. God doesn't want you held in that bondage. He wants you free. So if you need some help with that, definitely give me a ring and I can help you with that. How about demotivating yourself? That's a new term, huh? Demotivating yourself. So you basically are talking yourself out of things that could be beneficial to you. It's also called self-sabotage. We've talked about that one, so check that one out. Being a part of unnecessary conversations and gossips. Folks, you know, as Christians, we have a really difficult time of saying, oh, I just need you to pray for this person because blah, 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 blah. And there's a really fine line between really asking for prayer for somebody and then converting and giving over what's really going on in their life, which is not your story to share. So if you know somebody needs prayer, all you need to do is say, hey, would you keep Pat in prayer? That's it. All you gotta say, God knows what it is. They don't need to, right? So just position yourself in a way that you don't have to be a part of these gossiping situations, right? And then the last one is surrounding yourself with people who possibly just aren't helping you in becoming a better version of yourself. And that is going to make your soul and your spirit and your body tired. So really engage with a tribe of people who really, the minute you're in there, you know that they are your people. That's what I personally love about the 100X community. And I'd love to share that with you if you would like some more information. But Pedro Daho really was moved by the Lord to start a kingdom entrepreneur group and movement that really focuses on what God's doing for kingdom impact. And it is such an exciting place to be. And the minute you're in there, man, you know these are your people. And you get to just converse and see what God's doing in everybody's lives. And I love being part of that group. So that's a group that maybe you could get involved in too. I can give you some more information. So what are our wisdom verses today? Matthew 11:28-29. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That doesn't mean that God is going to take what you're laboring in away. There's birthing, it's a lot like childbirth. God doesn't take away. We're actually pregnant for 10 months. I don't know why we ever say 9. Trust me, I was pregnant. It's 10 months in 40 weeks, right? And so, but there's an end in sight. And that's what keeps you there. And even in labor, that's what keeps you going through it, because there's going to be an end. It's not going to be forever. There's going to be an end. Now, my mom might disagree. She was in labor with me for 72 hours. She didn't think it was ever going to end. Now, the other option is to take his yoke upon him. Take his yoke upon you and then learn from him. For he is gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jeremiah 31:25. I will satisfy the weary soul, and ever languishing soul I will replenish. So I want you to think about this. God is never exhausted. Have you not known, have you not heard that the Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth? He does not faint nor grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable, and he gives power to the faint. And to him who might be an increase in strength. Even youth shall faint and be weary, and the young man shall fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord, and you're waiting on him, right, will renew their strength. And they shall mount up like wings like eagles, and they shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Isaiah 40:28-31. And I'm going to wrap up with this. The Lord gave me a really interesting vision about this one day. We live in the Rockies. There's hawks and eagles everywhere, like literally a dime a dozen. Every street corner seems to have them sitting on the light poles. And it just dawned on me one day when I was reading this verse that it says, those who wait on the Lord. So I want you to liken this for an eagle or a hawk. Those that wait on the right wind current, right? When they catch the right wind current and they spread their wings, you don't ever really see eagles and hawks flapping their wings. Why? Because they've caught the wind current, and the wind current is what's carrying them. So they are not tired. They are not weary, riding the wind current, right? And then they shall mount up with wings like eagles, and they shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not be faint, because they conserved all that energy by riding that waiting with the Lord, riding that wind current, waiting on it. So I want to encourage you to think about, how can I ride the wind current of the Lord and then I'm not weary? Now, how to use all this information about tiredness and exhaustion and brain fog and brain fatigue, so many versions of tiredness, right? How do you apply that to your life? Remember, wisdom is the hearing and the understanding and the application of what's to happen. So here are your 3 questions to pursue. How has tiredness or fatigue been showing up in your life? Has it been negative or has it been positive? Has it made you examine some things that you might need to change in your life? How can you transform this tiredness, this fatigue, good or bad, by wisdom, understanding, and knowledge as you walk in it moving forward in the future? Because you are going to encounter some things that are going to bring you tiredness, perhaps exhaustion, hopefully not fatigue. But let's just say, if it did, how could you utilize the information you've learned today to transform it, to shorten it up, to use it to your advantage, leverage it for your advantage, right? So what are you going to talk about tomorrow? Tomorrow's word is content. Finding peace in the circumstances of life that may be making you tired. Which contentment is something we could all use a little more of, don't you think? So join us again tomorrow for more on emotions, wisdom in your body, and register at kcrystalgriffith.com to receive more insights and your feeling wheel. And I'm so glad you were able to join us today. You guys have a blessed day. Take care.